The Revik Empire stretched across the galaxy like a shadow. For 3,000 years, they had ruled over 847 star systems. Every alien species they met had two choices: serve them or die. Most chose to serve. Captain Jin-Ho Park stood in the command center of Earth's main space station. He was reading reports that made his stomach turn. The Revik had just destroyed another planet. This time it was a world full of peaceful traders who had refused to give up their freedom. The Revik turned their cities to glass and took the survivors as slaves. "Sir, we have more bad news," said Lieutenant Minji Choi as she walked up to him. She carried a data pad with new information. "Our spies got more files from Revik space. You need to see this." Jin-Ho took the pad and read it. The file was about humans. It was written in the Revik language, but their computers had translated it. What he read made him angry. Subject: Human Species Assessment, the file began. Classification: Category 7, Negligible Threat. Danger level: Minimal. Recommendation: Not worth the effort to enslave. Possible use as food source only. The report went on to describe humans as weak, short-lived creatures with primitive weapons. The Revik scientist who wrote it suggested that humans might be useful as livestock, but even that seemed like too much work. The file ended with a note that said, "Consider extermination if they become annoying." "They think we're animals," Minji said quietly. "Not even dangerous animals. Just pests." Jin-Ho handed the pad back to her. "What else do we know about them?" "They're huge," she said. 12 feet tall and made of some kind of living crystal. Their bodies can soak up energy weapons and shoot the power back at their enemies. Their ships are alive too. When we damage them, they heal themselves. And the mind control? That's the worst part. They can get inside your head and make you do whatever they want. Most species just give up fighting after the first psychic attack. The Revik don't even need to use much force anymore. They just walk in and everyone surrenders. Jin-Ho walked over to the big window that looked out into space. He could see Earth in the distance, blue and peaceful. "For now, sir," another voice called out. It was Commander Taehyun Kim, who had just entered the room. "The council wants to try talking to them." "Talking?" Jin-Ho turned around. "Did they read the same files we did? They think maybe we can make a deal. Give them some of our outer colonies in exchange for leaving Earth alone." Jin-Ho shook his head. "The Revik don't make deals. They take everything. I know that. You know that. But the council wants to try anyway. They're sending me to lead a diplomatic mission. That's suicide. Maybe. But orders are orders." 2 weeks later, Taehyun's ship reached the edge of Revik space. They had expected to meet a Revik fleet, but instead they found just one massive ship waiting for them. It was 3 miles long and looked like it was grown rather than built. Its surface moved like skin, and strange lights pulsed along its sides. "Attention, human vessel." A voice came over their radio. "You will stop and prepare to be boarded. This is Commander Taehyun Kim of the Earth Defense Force," Taehyun replied. "We come in peace to discuss—" "Silence," the voice cut him off. "You do not speak until given permission." A beam of energy shot out from the Revik ship and grabbed Taehyun's vessel. They were pulled inside the alien ship through an opening that sealed behind them. The inside looked like the inside of a living creature, with walls that breathed and floors that felt warm under their feet. Revik soldiers met them at the airlock. They were even more frightening in person than in the pictures. Each one stood 12 feet tall with bodies made of dark blue crystal that seemed to glow from within. They had no faces as humans understood them, just smooth surfaces with patterns of light that shifted and changed. "Follow," one of them said without moving its mouth. The voice appeared directly in their heads. They were led through corridors that pulsed with alien life to a large room. At the center stood the biggest Revik any human had ever seen. This one was 15 feet tall and made of silver crystal instead of blue. Patterns of light raced across its body like lightning. "I am War Leader Vextar," it said into their minds. "You are the humans who think they can negotiate with the Dominion." "We are," Taehyun said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We come seeking peace between our peoples." The war leader made a sound like breaking glass. It took the humans a moment to realize it was laughing. "Peace. You misunderstand your situation, little creature. We do not make peace with insects. We decide whether to step on them or ignore them. We're not insects," Taehyun said. "We're a spacefaring civilization with rights." "Rights?" The laughter got louder. "You have no rights. You exist because we allow it. You breathe because we have not yet decided you're worth killing." The war leader moved closer. Each step made the floor shake. Your species has exactly one choice. Submit now and become our slaves, or resist and be destroyed. Those are your only options. And if we choose to fight, then you will die quickly instead of slowly. Your weapons are toys compared to ours. Your ships are paper boats in a hurricane. Your minds are so weak that a single Revik child could control an entire human army. Taehyun felt something pushing at the edges of his thoughts. It was like having someone else's fingers poking around inside his head. He gritted his teeth and pushed back, but the pressure was enormous. Interesting, the war leader said. You resist better than most, but not well enough. The pressure increased. Taehyun felt his knees buckle. One by one, his crew members fell to the floor, their eyes rolling back in their heads. Tell your leaders what you have seen here, the war leader commanded. Tell them that the Revik Dominion is coming for your world. Tell them that resistance is futile. The pressure disappeared suddenly. Taehyun gasped and fell forward, catching himself on his hands and knees. You have 30 of your days to surrender unconditionally. After that, we will come and take what we want anyway. The only difference will be how many of your people we kill in the process. When Taehyun and his crew made it back to Earth, they brought the worst possible news. The Revik weren't interested in negotiation. They saw humans as nothing more than bugs to be swatted. And they were coming to do exactly that. The galaxy's greatest predators were hungry, and they had just noticed Earth. The 30 days passed quickly, too quickly. Earth's leaders spent every hour preparing for war, but they all knew it wouldn't be enough. How do you fight an enemy that has conquered nearly 1,000 worlds? Admiral Hunwoo Lee stood on the bridge of the battleship Seoul, humanity's most powerful warship. Around him, the human fleet waited in formation near the mining colony of Kepler 442b. 50,000 people lived on that rocky world, digging up rare metals that Earth needed for technology. Sir, we're getting something on long-range sensors, reported the communications officer. It's big. Hyunwoo looked at the main screen. A single dot appeared at the edge of sensor range, but as it got closer, it grew larger and larger. Soon they could see that it wasn't one ship at all. It was a fleet of living vessels, each one the size of a city. How many? Hyunwoo asked. 50 ships, sir. Maybe more coming. Hyunwoo nodded. The human fleet had 200 ships, but they were much smaller. Most were destroyers and cruisers built for fighting other human vessels. None of them were designed to fight living creatures that could heal from damage. On Earth, Dr. Soyeon Nam watched the battle through a real-time data link. She sat in the command center with dozens of other analysts, all of them trying to learn everything they could about the enemy. This might be humanity's only chance to study the Revik in actual combat. Fleet deployment looks standard, she said into her headset. They're not even trying to be clever about it. The Revik ships moved forward in a straight line like they were marching in a parade. There was no sneaking around, no fancy tactics, just raw power moving forward to crush everything in its path. They fight like they think they've already won, Soyeon muttered. Back in space, the first shots were fired. Human missiles streaked toward the Revik fleet, carrying nuclear warheads that could crack a moon in half. The weapons struck the alien ships and exploded in brilliant flashes of light. When the light faded, the Revik ships were still there. Not only were they undamaged, but the holes the missiles had made were already healing. The living metal flowed like water, sealing itself in seconds. Target their engines, Hyunwoo ordered. Concentrate all fire on propulsion systems. The human fleet opened up with everything they had. Laser cannons, plasma weapons, and kinetic rounds all struck the rear of the Revik ships. Some damage was done, but it healed almost as fast as it was created. Then the Revik shot back. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the alien fleet. Where they touched human ships, metal melted like ice in a fire. The destroyer Busan took a direct hit and simply vanished, turned to glowing gas in an instant. Evasive maneuvers, Hyunwoo shouted, but it was too late for many ships. The Revik weapons tracked their targets with perfect accuracy. 3 more human vessels died in the first volley. On the mining colony below, Minho Seo was loading civilians into evacuation ships. He was just a lieutenant, but with most of the senior officers in space fighting the battle, he was in charge of getting people to safety. Move, 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 he shouted as families ran toward the transport ships. Leave everything behind. Just get on the ships. A woman carrying a small child stopped in front of him. What about our home? She asked. We've lived here for 10 years. Ma'am, if we don't leave now, you won't live anywhere at all. The sound of explosions echoed across the colony's dome. Through the transparent walls, they could see flashes of light in space as ships died. Most of them were human ships. In the command center, Soyeon was making notes as fast as she could type. Something was bothering her about the way the Revik fought. They were winning easily, but they weren't adapting their tactics at all. "Computer, show me Revik ship movement patterns," she said. The screen displayed the paths the alien ships had taken during the battle. They were perfectly straight lines, no deviation at all. Even when human ships tried to flank them, the Revik just kept moving forward and trusted their superior firepower to win. "They're not even trying to outmaneuver us," she realized. "They just bull their way through everything." Dr. Jisoo Kang, who was sitting next to her, looked up from her own analysis. "That's because they've never had to try. Think about it. For 3,000 years, every enemy they've faced has been weaker than them. They've never learned how to fight someone who might actually hurt them. But we're not hurting them. Not yet. But we're lasting longer than they expected. Look at this." Jisoo pointed to her screen, which showed communication intercepts from the Revik fleet. The aliens were talking to each other and their computers were translating the messages. "Ship leader, the soft flesh creatures are still fighting." One message read, "Why do they not surrender?" Came the reply, "All other species yield after the first demonstration of our power. These humans appear to be defective. They continue to attack even when it is clearly hopeless." Soyeon smiled grimly. "They don't understand us at all. They think we're broken because we won't give up." The battle in space was going exactly as everyone had expected. Badly. More than half of the human fleet was gone, and the rest were retreating. Admiral Hyunwoo had given the order to fall back when it became clear they couldn't win. But something strange happened as the human ships ran away. Some of them didn't retreat in a straight line. They weaved and dodged, using asteroids and debris for cover. The Revik, still flying in perfect formation, had trouble hitting these erratic targets. "Sir," the weapons officer on Hyunwoo's ship called out. "The cruiser Daegu is breaking off from the retreat. They're heading straight for the enemy." Hyunwoo watched as the damaged cruiser, its engines failing and half its weapons destroyed, turned around and flew directly at the largest Revik ship. The alien vessel's weapons focused on it, but the cruiser kept coming. At the last second, the Daegu's captain triggered the ship's self-destruct. The nuclear explosion caught the Revik ship at point-blank range. For a moment, it looked like the attack might actually do some damage. But the alien ship's living hull absorbed the blast and converted it into energy. Instead of being destroyed, the Revik vessel actually seemed to get stronger. On the colony, Minho was loading the last group of civilians when he heard something that made his blood run cold. It was a voice speaking directly into his mind, just like Commander Taehyun had described. "Attention, human insects. Your fleet is destroyed. Your resistance is meaningless. Surrender now and you will be permitted to live as slaves." All around him, people stopped moving. Some fell to their knees, their eyes going blank. The Revik were using their mind control powers on the colonists. But Minho found that he could still think clearly. The alien voice was in his head, trying to make him give up, but somehow he was able to fight it off. He looked around and saw that about half the people were still able to move. "Everyone who can still think, get on the ships now," he shouted. "Don't listen to the voice in your head." Those who could still resist grabbed the ones who couldn't and dragged them onto the evacuation vessels. Minho's ship was the last one to leave the colony. As they lifted off, he watched Revik landing craft descend toward the mining complex. The aliens had won their first victory against humanity. But they had also revealed something important. Not all humans were equally vulnerable to their psychic attacks. Some people, for unknown reasons, could resist the mind control that had conquered every other species in the galaxy. As the human survivors regrouped at a secret base in an asteroid field, they began to share what they had learned. The Revik were incredibly powerful, but they were also predictable. They fought the same way every time because they had never needed to change. Most importantly, they had never faced an enemy that refused to surrender. Every other species had given up after the first defeat. But humans were still here, still planning, still preparing to fight back. The Revik had won the battle, but they had no idea what they had really awakened. They thought they were dealing with another weak species that would bow down after a show of force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. 6 months after the massacre at Kepler 442b, humanity was still alive. That fact surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. The Revik had expected Earth to surrender immediately after their demonstration of power. Instead, they found humans digging in for a long fight. General Jinwoo Yoon stood in the underground command center that had been built beneath the mountains of Colorado. The surface of Earth looked normal from space, but underneath, humans were preparing for war in ways the Revok couldn't imagine. "Give me the status report," Jinwoo said to his staff. Colonel Chae-Young Lim stepped forward with a data pad. "The quantum scramblers are working better than we hoped. We've tested them on volunteers and they completely block Revok mind control." "How do they work?" "Remember how some people at the mining colony could resist the psychic attacks? We studied their brain patterns and found that their minds naturally create a kind of mental static. The scramblers copy that pattern and broadcast it." Jinwoo nodded. "What about the new ships?" "That's where things get interesting," said Captain Nayeon Jung, who had been transferred from asteroid mining to ship design. "We're building them completely differently now. Small, fast, and cheap. We can make 100 of our new fighters in the time it takes the Revok to grow one of their big ships." She activated a holographic display showing the new human vessel. It was tiny compared to Revok ships, barely large enough for one pilot. "We call them Hornets," Nayeon continued. "They're not meant to win fights. They're meant to sting the enemy and fly away before they can hit back. Will they work? We're about to find out." Captain Seokjin-oh volunteered to lead the first test mission. 3 days later, Seokjin sat in the cockpit of his Hornet as it drifted through space near a Revok patrol route. His ship was powered down to almost nothing, making it nearly invisible to sensors. Around him, 99 other Hornets waited in the darkness. "Target acquired," came the voice of his wingman through the radio. "Single Revok ship, looks like a scout." Seokjin could see it in the distance, a massive vessel that was probably 10 times the size of all their ships combined. Its surface pulsed with the slow rhythm of something alive. "Remember the plan," Seokjin said to his squadron. "Hit fast, hit hard, and get out before they know what happened." The Hornets powered up their engines and accelerated toward the Revok ship. They moved in a swarm like angry insects attacking a much larger predator. Their weapons were different too. Instead of trying to punch through the alien ship's armor, they carried special warheads designed by Dr. Da-Hyun Shin. "Sonic charges armed," Seokjin announced. "Target the ship's resonance points." The human fighters opened fire. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they shot devices that stuck to the Revok ship's hull and began emitting specific sound frequencies. Dr. Da-Hyun had discovered that the Revok's crystal bodies could be shattered by the right kind of vibration, and their ships had the same weakness. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Revok vessel began to turn toward the human fighters, its weapons charging up. But then the sonic charges reached the right frequency. The alien ship's hull began to crack. Lines of fracture spread across its surface like a spider web. The living metal tried to heal itself, but the constant vibration kept breaking it apart faster than it could regenerate. "It's working," Seokjin shouted. "All ships secondary attack pattern." Half the Hornets broke off and began attacking the ship's weapons. The other half concentrated on its engines. They didn't try to destroy everything at once. They just wanted to hurt it enough to prove a point. The Revok ship fired back, its energy beams reaching out to swat the human fighters. But the Hornets were too small and too fast. They darted between the weapon beams like flies avoiding a swatting hand. "Objective complete," Seokjin announced. "All ships withdraw." The human fighters scattered in all directions, leaving the Revok ship damaged and confused behind them. For the first time in thousands of years, a Revok vessel had been hurt by an enemy attack. Back on Earth, the success was celebrated, but Dr. Jisoo Kang had even better news. She had been studying recordings of Revok communications from the battle. "They're panicking," she told the assembled commanders. "Listen to this." She played a translated message from the damaged Revok ship. "Ship leader to fleet command. We have been attacked by human vessels. Our hull is damaged. Request immediate support." "Impossible," came the reply. "Human weapons cannot harm our ships," ship leader insists. "We are damaged. Humans used unknown weapon type." There was a long pause before the response came. "Fleet command to ship leader. Return to base for examination. This incident will be investigated." Jisoo smiled. "They don't know how we did it. They can't figure out our sonic weapons because they've never seen anything like them before." "That won't last," General Jinwoo warned. "Once they study that ship, they'll develop countermeasures." "Maybe, but that's not the important part. The important part is that we made them doubt themselves. For 3,000 years, they've believed they were unstoppable. Now they know they can be hurt." Intelligence reports started coming in from across the galaxy. The Revok were changing their patrol patterns. adding more ships to each group and becoming more cautious. The supreme confidence that had made them so dangerous was beginning to crack. Dr. Woo-Young Kim was working on an even more ambitious project in his laboratory. He had been studying samples of Revik biotechnology captured from the battle, and he had made a disturbing discovery. Their ships aren't just alive, he explained to his research team. They're all connected. Every Revik vessel shares the same basic genetic code. They're like organs in a giant body. What does that mean for us? Asked his assistant. It means that if we can develop the right kind of virus, we might be able to infect their entire fleet at once. The work was dangerous and difficult. Revik biotechnology was unlike anything on Earth. Their living ships used completely different chemistry, different cellular structures, even different DNA. But slowly, Dr. Woo-Young and his team began to understand how it worked. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Minho Seo had been promoted to captain and given command of a special operations unit. His job was to sneak into Revik-controlled space and cause as much trouble as possible. We're not trying to win battles, he told his team as they prepared for their first mission. We're trying to make them waste resources chasing us. Every ship they send after us is a ship they can't use to attack someone else. His unit used captured Revik technology to disguise their ships. From the outside, they looked like alien vessels. They would fly into enemy territory, attack supply convoys and communication stations, then disappear before reinforcements could arrive. The psychological effect was devastating. The Revik had never dealt with guerrilla warfare before. They were used to enemies who fought in straight lines and followed predictable patterns. Human tactics made no sense to them. Why do they not protect their valuable ships? One intercepted Revik message asked. They allow them to be destroyed for minor tactical gains. Human behavior is irrational, came the reply. They value concepts over resources. The aliens were right, but they didn't understand what that meant. Humans would sacrifice expensive ships to save a few lives or to strike a symbolic target. They would fight hopeless battles just to prove a point. To the Revik, this looked like madness. But it was a madness that was working. Every time the humans did something unexpected, the Revik had to adapt their plans. Their neat, orderly conquest of the galaxy was turning into a messy, complicated war. More importantly, other species were starting to notice. The Revik had ruled through fear, convincing everyone that resistance was impossible. But if humans could hurt them, maybe other races could too. Reports started coming in of rebellions on slave worlds. Species that had been conquered decades ago were rising up against their Revik masters. Most of these rebellions failed, but they forced the aliens to divert ships and troops to deal with them. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Revik Empire was fighting on multiple fronts. Their resources were being stretched thin. Their commanders were making mistakes, and in hidden bases across human space, scientists and engineers were working day and night on weapons that would turn the war around completely. 2 years into the war, the galaxy was burning. Not with the quick, clean conquest the Revik had planned, but with the messy chaos of 1,000 small rebellions. Admiral Yoongi Bae watched the tactical display from his command ship and smiled. The plan was working perfectly. How many ships did we lose today? He asked his aide. 17, sir. But we destroyed 5 Revik vessels and damaged 12 more. Good. What about the supply raids? 43 successful attacks on Revik supply lines. They're having trouble keeping their forward bases supplied. Yoongi nodded. This was the Mosquito campaign in action. Instead of fighting big battles they couldn't win, humans were attacking everywhere at once. Each attack was small, but together they were bleeding the Revik Empire to death. The beauty of it was that the Revik couldn't adapt. Their whole military was built around the idea of overwhelming force. They had huge ships, powerful weapons, and terrible psychic abilities, but none of that helped when their enemy refused to stand still and fight. On the planet Zerion 7, intelligence operative Ryujin Han crept through the underground tunnels beneath the slave city. She wore a quantum scrambler that hid her thoughts from Revik mind control, and her mission was simple: teach the local population how to fight back. The Zerians were a peaceful people who had surrendered to the Revik 50 years ago. They had blue skin and 6 arms, which made them perfect workers in the alien factories, but they had never stopped hoping for freedom. "Show me the device again," whispered Korvac, the leader of the underground resistance. Ryujin held up a small box no bigger than her fist. "This is a portable quantum scrambler. When you turn it on, the Revik can't control your mind anymore. And you can make more of these. Your people are good with electronics. I can teach you how to build them from parts you already have. Within weeks, the rebellion on Zarian 7 had spread to every factory and mine on the planet. The Revok found themselves facing workers who could think for themselves again. Production ground to a halt as slaves refused to work and began sabotaging the equipment. The same scene was playing out on dozens of worlds. Humans weren't just fighting the Revok themselves. They were teaching everyone else how to fight too. Species that had been enslaved for generations were remembering what freedom felt like. In deep space, Captain Hoseok Chai monitored Revok communications from his stealth ship. The alien messages were becoming increasingly desperate. Fleet Command, this is Sector 7. We need reinforcements immediately. The humans have destroyed 3 supply convoys this week. Sector 7, this is Fleet Command.
No reinforcements available.
Deal with the problem using local resources. Fleet Command, we don't have enough ships to patrol all the shipping lanes. The humans attack and disappear before we can respond. Then predict where they will attack next and position forces accordingly. Fleet Command, we have tried that. The humans don't follow any logical pattern. Sometimes they attack valuable targets, sometimes worthless ones. Sometimes they attack the same place twice, sometimes they ignore easy targets completely. Hoseok grinned as he listened. The Revok were trying to apply logic to human chaos and it was driving them crazy. Human commanders didn't always make the most efficient choices. But that unpredictability was exactly what made them so dangerous. The breakthrough came when Captain Yeji An led a raid on a Revok research station. Instead of just destroying it, her team managed to capture the facility intact. Inside, they found something incredible. A complete Revok command ship that was being studied. We hit the jackpot, Yeji reported to Earth Command. This ship contains the entire Revok military database. Fleet positions, supply routes, communication codes, everything. But Dr. Woo Young Kim was more interested in the ship itself. He and his team swarmed over the captured vessel, studying every detail of its living technology. It's perfect, he said after days of examination. The ship's biological systems are even more connected than we thought. If we can introduce our virus here, it will spread to every Revok vessel in the galaxy. How long will that take? Asked General Jinwoo. The virus needs to be perfect. One mistake and their immune systems will adapt to it. Give me 6 months when you have 3. I'll take it. While Dr. Woo Young worked on his bioweapon, the war continued to turn against the Revok. Their empire was simply too big to defend effectively against an enemy that could strike anywhere. They had conquered hundreds of worlds by making examples of a few, but humans refused to be intimidated. The psychological impact was enormous. For 3,000 years, the Revok had been seen as gods of war. They were unstoppable, inevitable, perfect. But humans were proving that perfection was actually a weakness. They can't learn, observed Dr. Jisoo Kang during a strategy meeting. Their entire culture is based on being superior to everyone else. When they encounter a problem they can't solve with raw power, they don't know what to do. That's their weakness, agreed Admiral Yoongi. They're so used to winning easily that they never develop the ability to adapt under pressure. The proof came when the Revok tried to copy human tactics. They sent small ships to raid human supply lines, thinking they could beat humans at their own game. But the alien raiders moved in perfect formation, attacked obvious targets, and retreated along predictable routes. Human forces destroyed them easily. They're trying to be chaotic in an organized way, laughed Captain Seokjin after shooting down another Revok raider. They don't understand that chaos has to be real, not planned. As the 3rd year of the war began, the Revok Empire was collapsing. Not all at once, but piece by piece. They still controlled most of their territory, but they couldn't hold it effectively. Rebellions flared up faster than they could be suppressed. Supply lines were constantly under attack. Their military was spread so thin that they couldn't concentrate enough force to win decisive victories. The final straw came when Dr. Woo Young completed his bioweapon. It looked like nothing special, just a small vial of clear liquid. But inside that liquid were billions of engineered viruses designed to attack Revok biotechnology. Remember, he told the team preparing to deploy it, this only works if we can inject it directly into a major Revok ship. The virus needs to access their primary biological network. Captain Yeji volunteered for the mission. She and her Special Forces team would sneak aboard a Revok command ship and release the virus into its systems. It was almost certainly a suicide mission. If this works, General Jinwoo told her before she left, the war could be over in weeks. And if it doesn't work, Then we keep fighting until we find something that does. Yeji's team used captured Revik technology to disguise their small ship. They approached a massive command vessel that was coordinating attacks against human colonies. The plan was simple: dock with the ship, fight their way to its biological core, release the virus, and try to escape. Everything went wrong almost immediately. The Revik detected them as soon as they boarded. Alarms wailed through the living corridors as alien soldiers rushed to stop them. Yeji's team fought running battles through halls that bled when shot and corridors that tried to trap them, but they kept moving toward their target. 2 team members died getting past the first checkpoint. 3 more fell defending the approach to the ship's core. By the time Yeji reached the central chamber, she was alone and badly wounded. The ship's core was a massive heart-like organ that pulsed with alien life. Tubes and veins connected it to every part of the vessel. This was what Yeji needed to reach. She pulled out the vial of virus and prepared to inject it into the central organ. But before she could, a massive Revik appeared in the doorway behind her. "Human scum," it said into her mind. "You will not damage this ship." "Watch me," Yeji replied and plunged the needle into the ship's heart. The Revik soldier killed her a second later, but it was too late. The virus was already spreading through the ship's biological systems, and from there it would spread to every connected vessel in the fleet. Within hours, Revik ships across the galaxy began to malfunction. Their living hulls started breaking down. Their weapons failed. Their life support systems collapsed. The perfect biological technology that had made them invincible was turning against them. The Revik Empire, which had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years, was dying. And humanity had killed it with the smallest weapons of all, microscopic viruses that the aliens couldn't even see. The war wasn't over yet, but for the first time, humans knew they were going to win. The virus spread faster than anyone had expected. Within a month, half the Revik fleet was dead in space, their living ships rotting from the inside out. The other half was desperately trying to find a cure that didn't exist. Dr. Wu Yong had designed his weapon too well. It evolved faster than any immune system could adapt to it. Fleet, Admiral Sung-Hoon Park stood on the bridge of the battleship New Seoul and watched the enemy fleet dying in front of him. Massive Revik ships that had once seemed unstoppable now drifted helplessly, their hulls cracking and bleeding strange fluids into space. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the Revik flagship," reported his communications officer. "Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a Revik war leader, but this one looked different from the others they had seen. Its crystal body was dim and cracked, with dark patches spreading across its surface like a disease. "Human Admiral," the alien said, its mental voice weak and distorted. We request terms for surrender." Sung-Hoon almost couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Revik, who had never surrendered in 3,000 years of conquest, were asking for mercy. "Terms?" Sung-Hoon replied. "You mean like the terms you offered humanity? Submit or die. Please. Our ships are dying. Our people are dying. We will give you anything you want. What we want is for you to never threaten anyone again." The war leader's form flickered on the screen. "We accept. We will withdraw from all conquered worlds. We will disarm our fleets. Just stop this plague that is killing us." Sung-Hoon looked around at his bridge crew. Every human face showed the same expression: grim satisfaction. After 3 years of brutal war, victory was finally within reach. "Negative," Sung-Hoon said firmly. "The virus stays. Your empire ends here, but we surrender. By the laws of war, you must accept our surrender." "You never followed the laws of war when you were winning. You turned entire species into slaves. You destroyed civilizations for fun. Now you get to see how it feels to be helpless." The transmission cut off, leaving silence on the bridge. Sung-Hoon turned to his tactical officer. "Status of Operation Silence. All human fleets are in position, sir. We're ready to move on the Revik homeworld. Then let's finish this." The final assault on the Revik homeworld was unlike any battle in galactic history. Humanity didn't send a massive fleet to fight a glorious battle. Instead, they sent 1,000 small ships carrying the deadliest cargo in the universe, more of Dr. Wu Young's virus. The Revik homeworld was a crystal planet that pulsed with alien life. Cities grew from the ground like living trees, and the entire world was connected by biological networks that had evolved over millions of years. It was beautiful, ancient and completely defenseless against humanity's microscopic weapons. Dr. Leah Song led the science team that deployed the virus on the planet's surface. She had taken over the project after Dr. Wu Young died in a Revok retaliatory strike, and she was determined to finish what he had started. "Remember," she told her team as they prepared to land, "we're not just destroying their technology. We're removing their ability to rebuild it. This virus will make it impossible for them to grow new ships or weapons." The landing was unopposed. The few Revok ships left in orbit were too damaged to fight effectively. Most of them were already dead, drifting hulks that would soon fall into the planet's atmosphere and burn up. On the surface, the team found a world in chaos. Revok cities were collapsing as their living structures died. The aliens themselves were fleeing underground, trying to escape the biological catastrophe that was consuming their civilization. "Target the primary bionetworks," Leah ordered. "Once we infect those, the virus will spread to every living structure on the planet." Her team worked quickly and efficiently. They had done this on dozens of worlds already, bringing down the Revok Empire one planet at a time. The procedure was simple. Find the central biological network, inject the virus, and watch as 3,000 years of alien civilization crumbled in a matter of hours. But this planet was different. This was where it had all started. This was the heart of the empire that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. As Leah prepared to inject the final dose of virus into the planet's core network, a Revok approached her. This one was ancient, its crystal body so old that it was almost transparent. It moved slowly, clearly dying from the biological plague that was consuming its world. "Human," it said, its mental voice barely a whisper. "Why do you do this?" "We offered to surrender. We offered to give you everything." Leah looked at the alien creature without sympathy. "Because surrender isn't enough. You've had 3,000 years to learn how to coexist with other species. Instead, you chose to be predators. Now you get to learn how it feels to be prey. But we are an ancient race. We have culture, history, achievements that span millennia. You would destroy all of that? Did you think about the culture and history of the species you destroyed? Did you care about their achievements?" Leah shook her head. "You made yourselves into a disease that infected the galaxy. Now we're the cure." She injected the virus into the network. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the planet, Revok structures began to collapse. The living cities that had stood for thousands of years crumbled into dust. The biological networks that connected their civilization went dark forever. The old Revok watched its world die around it. "You humans," it said as its own body began to break apart. "You are more ruthless than we ever were." "No," Leah replied. "We're just more thorough." Within a year, the Revok Empire was completely gone. Not defeated, not conquered, but erased. Their ships were dead hulks floating in space. Their worlds were sterile rocks where nothing could grow. Their people were scattered refugees begging for shelter on primitive worlds at the edge of the galaxy. Some humans wanted to hunt down even these survivors, but cooler heads prevailed. Captain Taeyong Lee, who had become Earth's chief diplomatic officer, argued for a different approach. "Let them live," he said during the peace conference, "but let them live as examples. Every species in the galaxy should see what happens when you try to rule through fear and oppression." The surviving Revok were relocated to a handful of worlds that could support their basic needs. But they were forbidden from developing any advanced technology. They would spend the rest of their existence as farmers and manual laborers, never again able to threaten anyone. Director Karina Choi, who now headed humanity's new galactic government, established monitoring stations around every Revok settlement. "We'll watch them," she announced. "Forever if necessary." They had their chance to be civilized. They chose to be monsters instead. The galaxy was free, but freedom came with responsibility. Humanity found itself in the position the Revok had once held, the most powerful species in known space. The question was what to do with that power. The answer came from an unexpected source. On Earth, in a classroom full of young children, teacher Subin Kwan was explaining the war to her students. "Why did we have to destroy them completely?" asked one little girl. "Couldn't we have just made them be nice?" Subin thought carefully before answering. "Sometimes when someone becomes too dangerous, you can't just make them stop. You have to make sure they can never be dangerous again." The Revok had forgotten how to be anything except predators, so we had to remind them what it's like to be prey. "Will we become like them?" asked another child. "Will we become the mean ones who hurt everyone?" That's why we remember this war, Subin said. Not because we're proud of what we had to do, but because we never want to become what we destroyed. Power is dangerous. It can make you think you're better than everyone else. We have to always remember that we're not. The children nodded solemnly, not fully understanding but sensing the importance of the lesson. Outside the classroom window, ships from a dozen different species flew through Earth's sky. The galaxy was rebuilding, with humans helping instead of ruling. Former slave species were rediscovering their own cultures. New alliances were forming based on cooperation instead of fear. It wasn't perfect. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve. But for the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy was free to grow and change without a boot on its neck. And in the depths of space, the dead hulks of Revik's ships served as monuments to a simple truth. No one, no matter how powerful, is unstoppable forever. Somewhere in the universe, there is always someone willing to fight back. The Revik had learned that lesson too late. Humanity would make sure that no one else ever forgot it.